In this video, I'm going to be attempting to complete the hardest challenge run ever done before inside of Grounded, the woah mode tier 1 only challenge. This challenge is so difficult that no one has ever completed it before, but this challenge run has been completed on mild and medium by myself and my fellow content creator Paralyzer, but no one has ever stepped foot doing the tier 1 woah challenge, as everyone knows if you have played Grounded and you have played woah mode, even with the best weapons and armor in the game, it is still extremely difficult. With all that said, let's jump straight into the rules. So obviously we must be in woah mode, the hardest difficulty in the game. I can only use the tier 1 weapons, accessories and armor, but I'm going to allow myself to use higher tier weapons to go ahead and get some resources, otherwise I will not be able to summon in any of the bosses, complete the story or upgrade my character, and without that, this run is extremely bland. This entire tier 1 woah challenge run was also fully live streamed here on my YouTube channel. If you guys would like to watch the entire 8-hour VOD or skim through it, I'll leave the links down below to the stream in the description. And now let's get straight on to today's video. Starting off the run, I ran outside of the kids case, and outside I collected a bunch of the very basic resources, but most importantly collecting as much food as I possibly can, as because we are in woah mode, our hunger and our thirst drains extremely quick. I discovered my one of very many field stations, and inside I found some granola bars, which is not only good for healing but also gives me a bit of hunger, and inside of the resource analyzer I analyzed the sap, the pebblets and also the plant fiber, allowing me to craft some crude rope, which I can go ahead and make a pebblet axe and my pebblet spear. With the axe in hand, I went over to these clovers and chopped them down for their clover leaves, which I can go ahead and craft up the clover armor set, which in my opinion is the best tier 1 armor set. Close by I found some gnats and decided to take them out, as I'm going to need their gnat fuzz to go ahead and craft the sprig bow. With my spear in hand, I went over to the spaces that had the lawn mites chewing on the wires and decided to kill a bunch of them with the spear, as I wanted to get the Javelinier mutation, which I needed 50 kills to unlock. The reason why I wanted the Javelinier mutation is because it allows me to deal more damage when I throw my spear, and throwing spears at any point in the game is extremely useful as it deals a ton of damage, and with my abysmal damage with my tier 1 weapons, any damage boost is extremely helpful. I craft up a workbench, and inside I craft up the eye patch headpiece, the clover poncho and also the clover shin guards. The eye patch actually came really useful in this run, as this increases my damage but also lowers my defense, and in woah mode with tier 1 armor, basically any bug one-shots you in the yard, so the eye patch really just gives me a damage boost. I also went for the rotten lava blade, not to deal a ton of damage to enemies, but after every hit with the blade I put a poison DOT on him, which is really useful. Killing a few more lawn mites, I got the Javelinier mutation and equipped it straight away, and now I was feeling strong. So I decided to take on a wolf spider straight away and got a reality check that I was indeed not as strong as I thought. So I decided to go ahead and prep my character up a lot more and analyzing some more resources, and then I crafted a workbench, and inside this workbench I crafted the MVP for the run, the spiky sprig. Not only does this weapon apply a bleed damage over time after every hit, but its throwing damage is also extremely strong. Still inside the workbench, I craft up the pebblet hammer to get some of the tier 1 resources, and then I also craft up the sprig bow with some arrows so I can shoot some enemies from afar. I then went back to the spacer and activated it, unlocking Burgle and also the Oak Tree Lab. But before I did that, I decided to lure over a stink bug towards the red ants, which does a bunch of damage to the stink bug, and then I finished it off with my spear. I needed stink bug parts as I wanted to craft the insect hammer as early as I possibly can to go ahead and get milk molds to upgrade my character. I then went inside of the red ant hill and decided to take on some of the red soldier ants, but was outnumbered and was taken out quite quickly. Woah is no joke, man, they deal too much damage to you. But I shrugged all the dirt off my shoulders, went back into the nest, got some tier 1 upgrade resources and also the red anthill Burgle chip. After collecting that chip, I went over to the Oak Lab and revived Burgle, placed my hand on the biometric scanner, and inside Burgle's shop I bought the smithing station, the meat shield mutation, the fiber bandage efficiency upgrade and the canteen upgrade. Outside of the Oak Lab, I decided to take on this wolf spider that was sitting right next to my base, but he had a different plan and decided to bring backup of 2 more spiders. But those spiders caused no threat because I was now powerful and took all of them out. With these spiders dead, I was now able to go ahead and start building my base, and then inside of the smithing station I used the upgrade rocks that I'd recently collected to upgrade my armor for more defense and my weapons for a little bit more damage. Even though in woah mode you still deal minimal damage, any extra damage helps as I can just take out ladybugs extremely quickly now. The next morning it was now time to start the Hedge Lab, but before I did that I went inside this cave and discovered the 4-leaf clover, granting me the Coup de Grace tier 1 mutation, which allows me to have a 2.5% increased critical hit chance. Over near the hedge I went ahead and took out some of the bombardier bees beetles, as I needed at least one of them to drop a boiling gland, which I'll then need to use it to craft the insect hammer. With the boiling glands collected, I went ahead and got some of the berry chunks, which then I would need to use to turn into berry leather, which is also needed for the insect hammer. With all the ingredients collected, I made a workbench in the hedge and crafted up the insect hammer, now meaning we can go ahead and get tier 2 upgrade rocks and most importantly, milk molars. With those few milk molars collected, I went ahead and upgraded my maximum HP and also reduced my hunger and thirst drain. Now you could say upgrading my hunger and thirst drain was kind of stupid, but it was really starting to annoy me at this point. And now it was time to start the Hedge Lab. Inside, I put my hand on the biometric scanner, went around the entire Hedge Lab and got all the password pieces, a few milk molars, and when I was farming for this mega milk molar, I discovered a Tase Tea somehow on the outside of the Hedge Lab, just stuck in a spiderweb. I have no idea how he got there. I tried to help the little guy out, but he cut himself down, falling to his death. Hashtag rest in peace Tase Tea. With all the password pieces now collected, I went inside this little compartment and got my very first super disc and duper disc. I ascended the hedge a little further and found a research note which had the boss recipe of the hedge broodmother. I backtracked a little and collected a few more of the milk molars surrounding the hedge, as I'm going to need a bunch of these to go ahead and upgrade my maximum HP, maximum stamina, and also healing, as I'm going to get one shot almost from any boss. I then spent these milk molars on my max active mutations, more maximum HP, and also maximum stamina. For some reason, I decided to run into the upyard, which I was not prepared for, and decided to get a few milk molars and a mega milk molar, and then I spent my mega milk molars on my max consumable stack size, resource stack size, and also a bit of my max stamina. With that big journey completed, I went back to base and upgraded some of my gear even more from the resources that I collected from the Hedge Lab, and now it was time to prepare for the Haze Lab. Usually in the Haze Lab, you're going to need to craft the gas mask, but for some reason the gas mask is actually not a tiered item, so I cannot use it. So I'm going to need to inhale a bunch of gas to get into the lab. But thankfully I have a plan, and the plan was to go ahead and get the candy dispenser and get all of the fresh mints inside, and then ate them to get the fresh defense mutation, which reduces the amount of burn damage and gas damage that I take, which is actually really helpful. And now it's time to run in the haze, and as you can see, my HP bar is slowly dropping thanks to the 3 out of 3 fresh defense mutation. Now usually to enter the Haze Lab, you're going to need to craft your own bombs to explode the door, but you can actually lure some infected weevils over to it to blast open the door for you. Inside of the Haze Lab, I found the poison mushroom sandwich recipe, which I'll then need to use later on to craft to poison the red ant queen. And now it was time to prepare for the Haze Lab boss fight, the infected ladybug. Now on woah mode, explosive damage deals a crap ton of damage too, and if I get hit by one of these, I'm basically going to lose all of my HP. And not to mention that the infected ladybug on woah mode only also spawns in some infected larvae and infected mites, which makes this boss fight even more difficult. But thankfully I came in prepared, as my spiky sprig was a high enough level where I could throw the spiky sprig over and over into her face and deal a massive amount of damage. As a reward for completing the boss, I get another duper disc, another super chip, and a bunch of bombs. And now if you know me or you've watched my previous videos, you know that I like doing things as efficiently as possible, so now it is time to go ahead and do the Black Ant Lab. Even though I am very underprepared, I will take on the lab. Inside the lab, I took out a few of the Tase Teas and gained clearance to sector A and B of the lab, and then I did a little trick to go ahead and steal some loot from this chest to get a few more bombs. With full clearance to the lab, I went inside this massive room which holds the assistant manager, the next major boss fight. And now by no means is the assistant manager scary with his attacks. The only scary part about this boss fight is that he summons in a laser pillar and shocking pillars, which deals a massive amount of damage and basically almost one-shots you if you are on woah mode. And after throwing my spiky sprig in his face over and over, I did a little bit of damage and he didn't like that very much and summoned in the lasers. All I needed to do was wait out the lasers and then go ahead and just whack the assistant manager over and over and repeat that exact same process. Until I fumbled and I accidentally threw away my weapons and forgot to pick them back up, meaning I only had a spear left on me, and when the assistant manager is down to 3/4 of his HP, he summons in the lasers and the shocking pillars at the exact same time, meaning he can barely walk around the entire room. So I had to think quick, and the second the laser pillars went down, I picked up all my weapons that were in the corner of the room and began to hit the assistant manager over and over by throwing my spiky sprig. Thankfully, the spiky sprig has a ton of stun damage when you throw it, and stun the assistant manager, allowing me to have time to put more damage into his face. And with a final throw to his face, the assistant manager went down, and thankfully so, as my weapons were just about to break. And as my reward for killing him, I get the assistant manager keycard and the second last super chip. Outside of the Black Ant Lab and inside the sandbox, I used the assistant manager keycard to get inside the lab and got a burgle chip and also some spider spicy shards, and I ate those spicy shards, granting me spicy safety. This is an extremely good mutation as this reduces the stabbing and smashing incoming attacks by 50%. I then spent a little bit of time down in the bottom left part of the map getting a bunch of milk molars. I began to scale the picking table, and up here I killed a bunch of the bees, not only for their bee feathers but most importantly their bee stingers, as I'll then use these stingers for one, a zipline wall anchor, and also a boss recipe later on. From the picking table I glowed over using a dandelion tuft over to the barbecue spill, where I got a bunch of charcoal chunks, taking on a bunch of damage, but I need this as this was the only way to craft the oven, and which is the only way to go ahead and craft the boss summonable recipes and the poison mushroom sandwich. At a field station I used the milk molars to infuse my max active mutations, and also used my mega milk molars for my max resource and consumable stack size. Back at base I upgraded my pebblet spear to level 5, went back to Burgle and gave him back all the super chips and the auxiliary chips that I had recently collected, and inside of Burgle's shop I used some raw science to go ahead and buy the oven and also the zip line. With the ovens crafted, I then began to cook up the poison mushroom sandwich. Just outside my base I was fighting an All-Beaver Jr. and he sent me into space, but thankfully I went ahead and found a puddle which stopped the majority of my fall damage, otherwise I would have died here. After that massive hiccup I went back to base, and at the workbench I crafted the gill tube, as it was now time to go ahead and start the pond lab. The pond lab in my opinion is the most boring lab in the entire game, which is why I do it last, and to be fair it's the easiest lab as well. So to cure you from the pond lab boredom I went ahead and activated 3 of the breakers, which gained me access inside of the pond lab. After some more boredom in the lab, we find the main pond dome room, which is full of robots. After taking out these robots, we can now finish off the lab, collecting a bunch of muscle sprouts which we can use for smoothies, and also get the last super chip and duper disc. Now before leaving the pond lab, I used the assistant magic keycard to open this compartment here and press this button which opened up the Stump Lab in the upper yard, which is needed for the Mantis boss recipe. Back at base, the poison mushroom sandwich finished cooking, so now it was time to go ahead to go to the red ant nest to poison the red ant queen. After we poison her, she falls to the ground and dies, and we can loot her for her parts. I need her parts to craft the red ant strategist armor, which is the most broken armor in the entire game, and it is also tier 1, which is shocking. After the entire armor set was crafted, I went ahead and upgraded it down the sleek path, which gives us summon thorns. Now right now this is actually kind of useless, but later on it is going to be extremely powerful. Inside the oven I crafted up 2 broodmother BLTs and also 5 spicy globs, as it was now time to go ahead and prepare for the hedge broodmother. Once these spicy globs finished cooking, I went ahead and made one of my pebblet spears down the spicy path, which is what most of the spiders in the game are weak to. I ran back to Burgle, and inside of the super duper I decided to dupe some of these spicy pebblet spears so I can go ahead and start throwing them at the hedge broodmother over and over. Speaking of the hedge broodmother, it was now time to fight her, and I'm going to be completely honest, I'm going in this boss fight blind and I don't even know if it's going to be possible. And as I was beginning to throw these spicy spears, I was starting to think that this was not going to be possible, as the damage I was dealing was barely anything at all. So I changed up my game plan and decided to throw the spiky sprig at her face. I did crit her, but it dealt a bunch of damage, so the spiky sprig is stronger than the spears. And after a very slow and tedious boss fight of going ahead and stabbing and throwing spears over and over, dealing the least amount of damage possible in the game, the hedge broodmother finally went down, and killing her granted me the mom genes mutation, which is one of the mutations I need to go ahead and use on the red ant strategist armor, because this summons my own spiderlings. Also when looting her I got 3 broodmother chunks and I needed 5 of these, so thankfully I got a second broodmother BLT and I can go ahead and kill her again. The second time finding her I changed up my game plan and chucked on the entire red ant strategist armor set and the mom genes mutation, so I can go ahead and have my own summons, and the summons damage is insane, and this is just the beginning of how strong this build can be. So if you do not know how the summon thorns build works, basically anytime my summons get attacked by enemies, they reflect damage back depending on how much damage they take, and sometimes it can be a chunk of HP. And this build is so strong that on woah mode, the hedge broodmother went down for the second time in just under a few minutes. Which also means we have killed 1 out of the 4 major bosses needed to complete this challenge run. After taking out the hedge broodmother, it was now time to go ahead and go into the upper yard, a place where I have been dreading this entire run, as I am not sure if I can even kill any of these bugs here. And I need to be super careful because I'm not sure how much damage they will deal to me. They could possibly one-shot me, or they could possibly deal no damage to me. I do not know. But my main goal right now in the upper yard is to go ahead and get a Black Ox horn and some Black Ox parts, which I could then go ahead and craft the tier 3 Black Ox hammer, which I'm going to need to progress the story. After taking out another Black Ox beetle, I went ahead and looted their parts and got no Black Ox horns and only 3 parts. Luck was not on my side. So I left the Black Ox beetles alone and went over to the termite nest and took out some of the termite soldiers. I need to kill these guys to get their termite chompers to craft the tier 3 termite axe. And get this, I only need the tier 3 termite axe to go ahead and farm up some pupa, which is needed for the tier 3 Black Ox hammer. I was farming a few milk molars, and then I went ahead and broke some salt clusters for the heck of it, and I got the salty shard trinket, which is a 1% chance of dropping from any candy. Luck was on my side, but this is a tier 2 trinket, so I cannot use it. So to all the collectors out there, I'm sorry, but I am trashing it. I then began to farm a few more milk molars inside of the upper yard, and then went inside of the Stump Lab, and inside I found the Mantis boss recipe and also another milk molar. After collecting some of those milk molars, I spent majority of them to increase my healing. I then spent a while taking out another Black Ox beetle, and as my reward I got a singular part. Again. So I went ahead and took out another Black Ox beetle, and when I wasn't looking, he threw a rock at my behind, knocking me out. So I came back for revenge, and taking him out, he finally gave me another Black Ox part. But also, he gave me a Black Ox horn, so now I don't need to kill any more of these guys. Back in the lower yard, I was getting chased by a wolf spider and couldn't be bothered killing it, so I was hoping I could de-aggro it, but the wolf spider took full advantage of this and took my base away from me. So yeah, no, it's fine. I spent that time making it. It's yours now. Take it. But little did he know, a wrench was due and the payment was his life. Now, usually I would go ahead and craft the termite axe in the upper yard, but silly me forgot to bring the crow feathers along with me, which is the whole reason why I came back down to the lower yard. And considering I was down here, I decided to make the Mantis boss recipe as well, as I had enough parts to make it. And now it was time for the termite axe to shine, as I only used it to get the pupa hide. After collecting enough pupa, I turned it into leather and made myself the Black Ox hammer, meaning I can now go ahead and progress the story. With the Black Ox hammer in hand, I was now able to go over to the full-size Scabby and bust open the back to put the replacement fuse inside of it to go ahead and locate Wendell Tully, granting me access down into the undershed. And just before I went in, I also upgraded my maximum health one more time. And now in the undershed, this is where we find our very first Black Widow, and I really wanted to take this guy on, but I physically couldn't. Woe mode, the Black Widows are too strong, and there were so many spiderlings around, and the Black Widow keeps healing off them, so all the damage I dealt to the Black Widow will get healed back up in an instant. Like, it was impossible to kill a Black Widow, I'm sorry. So having defeat on my shoulders, I decided to shrug them off and just continue ahead and do the Undershed Lab, which is holding my favorite boss fight in the entire game, which is the Mant boss. And this is my favorite boss fight in the entire game for one reason only. The soundtrack for the boss is amazing. The boss itself is kind of mid, but the soundtrack just makes this boss fight so much better. And thankfully when I was fighting the Mant, my summon just kept on spawning over and over and over, and I was dealing a chunk of damage to the Mant. And this boss fight was super easy, as the Mant has an AoE attack which just demolishes his HP, and he went down very quick. After taking out the Mant, you get the Mant's Strange Mutation, which allows you to summon in your own Mant at a very low percent chance of only 2%. But the Mant with Summon Thorns is extremely strong and is the MVP. And if you had a keen eye, you would have seen this bee stuck in the ground in the undershed. I genuinely do not know how he got down here. Like, he's actually trapped in this little box, so I can't help him here. After killing the Mant, we go ahead and find Dr. Wendell Tully, which means we are now in the end game for the story. And now it's time to get the last milk molars I'm going to need for the run, the 5 milk molars in the milk molar bottle. After collecting those milk molars, I went around the upyard and took out a bunch of the wasp hives, which then angered the wasp nest inside of the Brawny Boy bin, which the Vost Queen is sitting in. It was now at this point in the run where I wanted to go ahead and get some more upgrades for my weapons and armor, but my chat did not want me to, so I did a Tiger Mosquito bounce inside of the Moldor Castle to take on the next boss, Director Shme. And inside Director Shme's lab, I found the Moldy Hoagie recipe, which is the infected Broodmother boss fight, the hardest boss fight in the entire game by far. And now it's time to prepare for Director Shme, and my weapons and armor are almost about to break, but I'm putting that aside me and I'm going to take him on. Once Director Shme spawned in, I used my spear to go ahead and summon in some of my Soldrans, and the damage they do, it's not a lot, but hey, I'm gonna have to deal with it. And now I'm going to speed up the Director Shme boss fight by 5 times speed, and look how much damage we are dealing. Our damage is bare minimum. We are like, it's gonna take us forever to kill him. And not to mention Director Shme, when he gets down to about half HP, he summons in Orc Weaver Juniors over and over and over. And these guys are extremely strong. Without Spicy Safety, which reduces my damage by 50% to stabbing, I will be getting one shot by these guys, no joke. And once Director Shme gets down to about 25% health, he summons in these green lasers, meaning I need to stay on the back of the wall to avoid them. And no joke, if I stand in the lasers for more than 1.5 seconds, I will die. And you thought that was bad? Well, how about when he gets down to about 10% health, he summons in the lasers, the Orc Weaver Juniors, and balls around the room, meaning this boss fight is so difficult, especially on WoW with tier 1. Now, I'd like to be thankful that I had the Mantis Stranger equipped, because the Mantis saved me so many times just pulling the aggro from the Orc Weaver Juniors onto itself, and the Summon Thorns just took them out straight away because they just deal so much damage. And with one final blow, Director Shme went down after about a 15-minute boss fight, and thankfully, it's all over now. I went back to base and took a well-deserved rest, but not only that, this is also the way we opened up the Brawny Boy bin, allowing us to fight the Vost Queen. I then went ahead and infused myself with Milk Maulers for the final time, getting maximum HP, maximum stamina, and hunger and thirst drain. It was also at this point back at base, I upgraded my armor down the final level of level 8, because I'm not going to go ahead and farm some more Supreme Marble. 1, because I'm lazy, and 2, because I don't need to. And now after I killed Director Shme and went back to base and prepared, it was now time to go ahead and fight the second hardest boss in my opinion in the game, the Mantis. The Mantis is so difficult because the Mantis just deals a crap ton of damage. No matter how much armor you have, it is going to put you down to 1 HP almost every single time. And not to mention, after every perfect block, you still get a bleed debuff. Like that's not fair. And on my first attempt, I wasn't doing too bad until I got blocked by my spiderlings and forgot to block this attack, getting one shot. On my second attempt, I had the perfect parry debuff and I couldn't perfect block all these attacks and died straight away. But as they say, third time's the charm and third time's the Mant. I got 3 Mant summons almost consecutively, meaning I had a 6% chance of popping that, and the Mants were just demolishing the Mantis's HP. And with one final throw of my spiky sprig, the Mantis went down, meaning we have killed 2 out of the 4 bosses needed to complete this run. After killing the Mantis at the Jar of Magic, I placed the embiggening cell and decided to put all the ingredients into the cocktail, getting prepared for the final defense, which is the final mission of the game. So I went over to all the mixer modules and put a very basic and minimalistic mushroom wall around it. Now this may seem stupid in WoW mode because usually you would prepare a lot, but just trust me on this, it's gonna work. I think. Inside of the Brawny Boy bin, I went into the Wasp Nest, which is the Vost Queen boss arena, and on this dead skeleton, I found her boss recipe. Back at base, I crafted a Weevil Shield, the Pebblet Dagger, 5 Sour Globes, and the BBQ Medley, which is the Wasp Queen boss recipe. Once the Sour Globes finished cooking, I went ahead and infused my Spiky Sprig down the Sour Path, which is what I'm going to be using in the final defense, as all the Orc bugs in the game are weak to sour damage. Once the BBQ Medley cooked, I went back to the upyard to fight the Wasp Queen, and my weapon of choice was going to be the Pebblet Dagger, as it is a fast-hitting weapon, and the faster I can hit the boss with my weapon, the faster I can summon in my own summons. Okay, here is a CDiinky rant time. Comment down below if this stinger should have hit me. It somehow did, yet it went off my screen. What is this game, devs? Now, in my opinion, the Vost Queen is the most annoying boss in the entire game, especially on WoW, because she screams every single time and she summons in 3 wasps. Now, granted, these wasps are very weak and they die in 3 hits, but they are just so annoying, especially in this boss fight, and especially when she brings in the wasp drones and they constantly heal her over and over and over. And now, when she was down, I did not feel good at all. My summons were attacking her and we only did about 3 bars of her HP. I was not feeling good about this. And after spending a very long time getting her down to half HP, and she kept on summoning drones, which kept on healing her HP, it was really starting to annoy me because I couldn't take out the drones and I couldn't do any damage at all. And of course, on the very first attempt, I did die. But on my second attempt, I was getting quite lucky because I got 2 Mants back to back, which dealt a ton of damage to her. And later down in the boss fight, I got a few more Mants as well. And I was like, we are going to win this. Luck is on my side. Luck is not on my side. But as they say, just like the Mantis boss fight, third time is the charm, and on her resting phase, I got so many summons in, and when she did her like acid spray attack, it hit every single summon and dealt a ton of damage to her HP, and I was like, this is the run. This is the run here. And on her second downtime on the ground, I kept hitting her over and over and summoned in a few more soul drains, but she did her acid attack once again and did more chunks to her HP. And now when she was down to about 10 to 15% HP, I got another Mantin, and the Mant was just tanking the damage, reflecting the damage back, and dealing a massive amount of damage. And yes, finally, we killed the Vost Queen after a very long fight. With her dead, we have completed 3 out of the 4 bosses. All we need to do now is the infected Broodmother. So I left no time to waste and I cooked up the moldy hoagie or the infected Broodmother boss recipe and upgraded my Pebblet Dagger down to level 7 fresh. Now the infected Broodmother is weak to fresh damage, and honestly, the Pebblet Dagger is going to do no damage to her, I'm going to be completely honest. I then went over to Burgle at the Super Duper and decided to dupe a bunch of my Pebblet Daggers and my Weevil Shields, as I wanted as many as I possibly could so I don't run out of a shield or a dagger and I can't deal any more damage or block any more of the infected Broodmother's attacks. I then went back to base inside the oven, picked up the moldy hoagie, and now it was time to fight the infected broodmother. I then went ahead and scaled to the top of the haze canister and plugged it, as this is the only way to open the infected broodmother's boss arena. And now it was time, the hardest boss fight in the entire game on the hardest difficulty with the worst gear. It's time to prepare, and can I do it? This is going to be tough. And as I summoned her in, I'm thinking to myself, I've beat you on mild, I have beat you on medium, please tell me I can beat you on woah, because I have no idea if I can even get her past her first phase. And now it's time for phase 1, and I got very lucky getting a Mant basically at the very start of the run, which was fantastic. So I let the Mant take a bunch of damage, and I'm feeling good right now. She's almost half HP in the first 30 seconds of the boss fight. The strategy for killing the infected broodmother was simple. Keep the bleed over time on her and make sure I summon in, and once I summon in, I just drop aggro off her and I run away, let my summons tank the aggro and deal damage to her. And soon enough, phase 1 is done, and it's now time on to phase 2. Phase 2 just started, and I just got a Mant once again, but the thing is, phase 2 is going to be difficult because the infected broodmother barely attacks you in this phase. All she has is a lunge attack and a side bite attack. The bombs actually do not do summon thorns either, and as you can see, she basically filled up her entire HP bar. This is going to be a long fight. All I need to do is rely on my Mant, and when she jumps back hitting all my summons, it deals massive damage. It was also at this point that I completely forgot there was a bomb right next to me, and it hit me and almost one-shot me straight away. This is going to be tough. For one explosive hit or one bite, and I'm going to be dead here. And after a long and painful phase 2, it is now time for phase 3. Everything that Grounded has taught me has been built up for this one moment. It is now time to fight the phase 3 infected broodmother. And now the very start of phase 3 was a little bit rough. I barely got any summons and I was dealing barely any damage, and she was just healing all of the damage I dealt straight back up. There was no Mant in sight, but thankfully I got some soldier ants and some spiderlings to help me, and this one little fight here did 25% of a health bar thanks to these summon thorns. This build is too strong. And now it was time. When I was blocking attacks, I saw the purple glow. The Mant came into fight and did a ton of damage on that one first bite. All I need to do now is drop the aggro. Why are you running towards it, CDiinky? Run away. Let the Mant take the aggro. I had a bunch of summons around her. She clouded up the room. She didn't know which one to hit, and she hit my summons, dealing a ton of damage once again. I swear, she should be dead about 3 or 4 times now, but she just constantly heals over and over and over by her bombs. And let's not mention that I almost died right here to this one explosive attack. I need to be very careful here. My shield's low, my pebble dagger's low, but thankfully I got another Mant. All you need to do, CDiinky, let the Mant tank. Look at that damage. Just let the Mant tank. The amount of damage that the Mant is doing is just insane. Like, the Mant is the MVP. I'm saying this over and over and over, but the Mant is the MVP. And with one final scream and the last scream of the infected broodmother, she finally went down after about a 30-minute fight, meaning that we have done the challenge. We have killed every single boss using it tier 1 gear on woah mode. We are possibly the first in the world to do this. And now, with the infected broodmother defeated, it is now time to do the final mission, the final defense. In my opinion, I thought this was going to be harder than the infected broodmother, and it might possibly be. I don't have a lot of defenses, my damage is abysmal, and all the enemies are orc variants which deal more damage and have more HP. And I was not feeling very good about this. I was fully buffed up and I was barely dealing any damage to the orc firework variants, the weakest in the raid, and I could barely take these guys out in like a decent amount of time. This is going to be tough. And as I was fighting an orc firefly, I heard a dink coming from Mixer A. There was a firefly on the mixer, just destroying it from above, destroying the mushroom walls as well, and exposing the mixer. This is not a very good start. And while I was focused on Mixer A, that Mixer C was getting exposed as well by the firework rant. This was not looking good at all. And with any downtime I had, I went ahead and I just started repairing the mixer models. I can just place a mushroom brick in front of it, hoping that the bugs just stupidly go for it instead of hitting the mixer, and then the ladybird came. Even throwing this spiky sprig, I'm dealing barely any damage. 2 bars of HP a throw. This is going to take ages, especially when the Black Ox Beetle and the 2 ladybirds arrive. And speaking of the devil, here was the Black Ox Beetle and the ladybird wave. Thankfully, I got a Mantis and we were barely surviving with just the soldier ants and the bombardier beetles. And my damage was abysmal. I was thinking to myself, I don't know how I'm going to do this. All I need to do is go ahead and distract them for long enough so I can go ahead and finish off the brewing. As my man despawned, I just had to back away and I had to lure the ladybird away. And I almost died here. If I got hit by that rock, everything would have been game over there. But I had to go ahead and leave the Black Ox Beetle and the ladybird alone, as there were a bunch of firework ants and soldier ants on Mixer C. I just had to wait it out. I just had to take out these guys off the mixer because we are just about to finish brewing. Hopefully I made the right choice here. And now at this point I'm stressing out. It's all for nothing, but thankfully we get the Jar of Matic cutscene, meaning we have completed the Jar of Matic on tier 1 woah. I then run inside the Jar of Matic and I grab the filled and beginning cell, and as I grab it, I feel relief. All we need to do now is grow big and go home. So I go back to the lower yard, I've placed the filled and beginning cell, I get cornered by 2 Orc Weaver Juniors, but I just have to run past them because I can't be bothered attacking him. I'm going big, we are finishing this challenge run. Wait, no, get out of the way and let me smack you on the head. I missed my first club, and then I hit him for the second time as tradition, and then I activate the spacer, completing the hardest challenge run ever done before in Grounded, the tier 1 woah. And that there is the end of today's video. Hopefully you guys did enjoy today's video. If you've stayed to this very exact point, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and even a comment down below. I'd really appreciate that. Like, I remember my very first challenge run was the tier 1 mild, and now we've done the tier 1 woah. I have no idea what other challenge run I can do that will top this. I guess time will tell. But with that said, guys, I will catch you guys in the next video.